Good evening. My name's Delia Prudence. I'm an artist from North Yorkshire. I'm based on the East Coast, Scarborough, beautiful part of the country. And I'm going to start and give you some little tips about some of the mediums that I use. One of the mediums that I use, one of the main mediums, is colour pencil. And a lot of the subjects that I do are English wildlife. I do love doing animals. And I find that because I like to do very detailed work, then the colour pencil is one of the best ways of getting there. So I'm going to tonight explain a little bit about the types of pencils that I use. I mean, there's lots out there to choose from, and it's down to a personal preference, I think. I have got quite a few sets. You don't need that many sets. You'll usually find that you'll have one favourite set that you'll work with mostly. But because as an artist I like to try as many different sets as I can, so I have got quite a collection. One of the main sets that I use is the Polychromos, and the other main set that I use is the Caran d'Ache Luminance. Now the Luminance are more of a waxy texture, and the Polychromos are more of an oily texture. So that means that the pigment is mixed, and there is both wax and oil in them both, but the Polychromos tends to have more oil in it, in the pigment, than the Caran d'Ache, which is more of a waxy affair. Now, storing the pencils, I do it in several ways. I have some left in their original tins. Polychromos. Now I do have a couple of sets of Polychromos because I also do teach colour pencil. So I have one full set out in these blocks here, which my husband made for me. So there is altogether, for a full set, there is 4 blocks, and that's the first block, and they're all in order. And what he does, he drills, so he gets a block of wood and simply drills in holes along there. And then what you can do, if you want to, you could put the number off each pencil. It's up to you. This is one blank one. This is an old one that I had. I actually just use this now for when I'm doing a project. I can stand my pencils up in it. So that's a spare one, but that's one way of storing them. Another way is another tidy way is I've got this like a little mini suitcase, and if you look on it, it's got on the top there's Polychromos and there's also Luminance here. So there's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 sets of sleeves. So when you open them up like that, you have 2 sides. So I have, when you open them up, I can actually get 2 sets in. So I can get a set of the Luminance in and a set of the Polychromos in. So that is how I store some pencils as well. So the Luminance are in there. But I also do have, from my days when I had the art room in Scarborough, I do have the display box, the display stand. So I do keep my sort of spare pencils in there. So what I do is, the ones that I use more often, the ones that I put in my palette, that I call my limited palette, I do have more of those, and I order about 6 at a time. But that's because I do commissions and I'm doing tutorials. I do a lot of online tutorials now. Now I'm out of the art room, and I'm starting to build up a collection of tutorials where you're provided with a line drawing if you don't want to do your own sketch, a reference picture, and also a list of the materials. So it'll be a list of the colours. So sometimes I mix them. I have Luminance for the base layers and Polychromos for the detailed layers. Sometimes I use just Polychromos, and also sometimes I include also some watercolour pencils. So the watercolour pencils that I use are here. I only have a few of them. I don't have a full set of these. And these are the Caran d'Ache ones, and these are the Museum Aquarelle. And I find these to be one of the best quality watercolour pencils. You can use them dry, but you can also use them wet, and I'll be showing you them later on. Now them I do sometimes incorporate and use them base layers, or you know, on top of other pencils, and you can say you can use them dry or you can add water to them and use them as like a water based pencil. Okay, so that's a little bit about the main pencils that I use. Let me just pop this back. A couple of the other sets that I use are, it's a Caran d'Ache one again, and this is the Pablo. There's 120 in here. The barrels are a little bit thinner, they're quite thin barrels. But these have some very unusual and very lovely colours in here, so you can see the ones that I use more often than the others because they're obviously worn down. There are some that I've never even used yet. And then another set that I've tried out, which I do like, but I don't do a lot of tutorials. I do use them in my commissions, but I don't use a lot of tutorials with them because not many people have these. They're not, you know, they're not as, because they're quite expensive to buy, they're not quite the ones that people use, and they're quite soft. They're not quite as hard as the Polychromos. But the reason why I like these is because we have a lot of white. You have a lot of like white tones in them. So you've got like yellow white tones. You've got some, that's a pinky white tone. We've got the oyster. And then if you go down the other layers, you've got wheat. You've got Arctic, which is a cool white. So we've got some very light tones. And also you've got some very... You've got a choice when you come to using the blacks. You've got midnight black, you know, all different various ones. And these are quite rich and buttery. So they are very nice pencils to work with. But as I say, they are very expensive. So not a lot of people have them. Now these are supposed to be the ultimate when it comes to light fastness. And they've been tested under museum conditions, and they are supposed to last, the light fastness is supposed to last about 70 years under museum conditions. So they are super light fast. The Polychromos are a good light fast, and so are the Caran d'Ache. If you go down to some cheaper brands, then it's the light fastness that you're not guaranteed. But if you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong with using the cheaper brand of pencils. But if you are going to be doing it a bit more seriously, then yes, I would suggest you use some very good light fast pencils. So that's a bit on the pencil sets that I use. Now, one thing I do when I get my pencil set is, one of the first things that I do is I do myself what we call a strip of the colours in order. So if you look, this is one that I did a long time ago. This is when I got the Polychromos. So what I've done is I've cut some paper out that I use for doing, so this is like a hot press watercolour paper, because that's what I use mainly. This was a Fabriano, I think. And then what I've done is I've put the title on Polychromos. And then what I've done is I've done some squares that go down this edge. And the reason why I've put them on the edge like that is because when I'm looking for a colour, that is easy to slide across a picture, you know, to find the colour that you're looking for. So, I know it's not a photo, but so say I was looking for that colour, the browns. So I could go to the sort of neutral colours and then find the nearest to it and then take it from there, whether I need to add other colours, or I have the other sets like the Pablo. That's the Derwent Light Fast set. I also have a Caran d'Ache Luminance set as well. So you can use these to help pick colours out that you think you'll need in your drawing. So what I do is I do a little square down the side, and then I put another little square where I can put the number, because as like I say, every pencil's brand is different, but they do always have usually they have a number. So here on the Polychromos, if you look, we've got the name here, which is, so that's a light cadmium red. That's it in German. So we have a light cadmium red. Then we have the number of the pencil, 117. And then here we've got some stars. Now the stars show you the quality of light fastness. So that's quite a high quality. Now these pencils have, the barrel is the full colour. And when you come to look at the colour and the lead, these are very good matches. So in other words, you know, the colour is as close as you can get to the barrel. And, you know, that is where I then put the colour down. So that's the 117 there. So it's a light cadmium red. So you put it down, put 117 and light cad red. And I do that with all my sets of pencils. So I start with the white, and if you look, so it goes from white into the cool yellows, then warming up. So we've got warmer yellows, oranges, then we go into the reds, and then come down here to the cooler reds, and then we go into the purples and the violets, then into the bluey violets, and then into the blues, right down into the cool blues. And then we go from the blues into the greens. And then we come into, from the greens, we start to come into what we call the neutral colours. So you've got colours like caput mortuum, Indian red, salmon. So we've got like the fleshy tones there. So these are all neutral colours. And then we go into the neutral yellows and browns, and then that comes and fetches us into the greys. Now, another good thing about the Polychromos is you have a 6 set of warm greys. So you've got from warm grey 1, the lightest, up to warm grey 6. And then as you've got warm greys, you've also got your cool greys, which start off there with your cool grey 1 and goes right up to the cool grey 6 there. So you've got a really good choice of the greys. So that's another good reason for using the Polychromos. And there's 120 colours in the set, so you've got a very good variety. Now, I don't use a lot of some of the colours because I'm doing a lot of wildlife with pencil. I tend to use a lot of the neutral colours. I do occasionally use the bright colours as well. Okie dokie, so that's one of the first things that I do. And then recently I've also started, I'm just going to do these, I'm working on the colour wheel for the other pencils. And I find this, I like to teach my students about this because a lot of people struggle with, they know what blue is, they know what red is, they know what the yellow is. And then you've got what we call secondary colours. So the primary colours, which is the blue, red and yellow, they cannot be mixed by any other colour. And that theory is the same in watercolour and all your other paints as it is in with coloured pencil. But then in between you've got secondary colour. So if you add a blue and a yellow, you're going to get a green. So that's your secondary colour. And then you're going to have your blue and your red, and you're going to get a purple. And then you've got your yellow and your red, and that you're going to get an orange. But in the pencil selections, you will find that you've got lots of different reds and lots of blues, and they start to change into the other colours. So what I've done is a colour wheel. So basically, this is made up of 4 circles. So that's the first circle. So that there is the nearest to a proper, what we call a proper blue. So I've put the number there and I've put the colour. So that's a 143 and there's your colour. Then as we go round the colour wheel, so there's your violet, which is your blue and your red. But then you've got a secondary colour here. So if you mix this, the secondary colour, sorry, this is a tertiary colour. So if you mix the secondary colour, the violet, with more blue, so there's a bit more blue over the violet, you'll get what we call a blue violet. Okay, but then also if you get the violet and it's in between the red and the blue, you've got red violet. So you've got your violet there, so you pick your violet and you add some of the red and you get what you call a red violet. and so on and so on. So that's your colour wheel. And then what I've done on here is I put the numbers of all the colours and I've put them into what category they belong to. So if we pull that around, so here we go, look, so that's violet there. So if I put all these, it's got a V there. If you look, they've got a V. So they're all the violets. So I can line them up like that. So for violets, I've got a choice of, there's them, and then, right, there isn't any more. Well, hang on, we've got some violets there. So then if I add that there as well, okay, forget this one, this is all neutral colours. So here we've got a full range of all the different violets that's in the set. So what I've done is I've put a V for violet and then all the different numbers there, okay. So we've got all these here, but then we start to go into what we call red violet. So we've got a choice here of all these colours, which are, so if you look, I've put an RV for red violet, and they're red violet under there, okay. You can see there, it does say red violet and the numbers. And then we've got the reds, and if you look, we haven't got much choice in the oranges. There's not much choice in the this is the polychromos. So we haven't got much choice in the oranges. We don't have as much choice as what we have with the violets. But then the other thing that I've done with this as well is a colour wheel is split between warm and cool colours. So if you look here where the red violet is, that says warm. Okay, and then, so if that goes all the way, so if you look at the warm, where it says warm there, so take the warm, it goes all the way around there till you come to, and that says warm, and then it goes to cool. So anything from this yellow right round to the red violet, they're warm, classed as warm colours. And then you've got, if you're looking for a cool colour, you've got cool that goes from the violet into the blue green, and then back up here into the yellow green, and that's where then it goes into warm colours. So this colour wheel is quite good, and it's quite comprehensive because it's got all of the colours on there. Okay, so again, that's another help when picking colours. All these circles are then, so colouring on them, they've got the numbers, and then what you do is you can just move them. So as you see, these don't have any initials on them, they just have the colour, the number of the pencil, and that's because these are classed as the neutrals. And then these have got some bits, so because we didn't have enough, so obviously cutting the circle out, you've got this section, so we had, this is why there's this ring on here, so you'll find there's a lot of colours missing because we don't have them in that range. So the oranges, you've only got 4. If you look there, you've got that one, which is 113, you've got a 111, 115 and 186, which is a neutral colour, but it's still an orangey colour. So there's your choices of oranges. So if none of those oranges suit what you're looking for, then obviously if you do another colour wheel for the other brands that you've got, then you will be able to see what other oranges are out there, because some of the sets will have more oranges than the polychromos. And most colour pencil sets can be mixed. You don't have to stick to one, you can mix them. Okay, so that's the colour wheel that I've been working on. And that's helped my students a lot as well to understand what we call cool colours and warm colours, because obviously cool colours make things recede and warm colours fetch them more to the front. So to give depth to your picture and the tonal values, yes, we do look as to whether they are warm values or cool values, especially when, like I'm doing, if I'm doing a black Labrador, as we all know, black doesn't really exist. So what we do is we use the greys, and we've got both warm and cool grey. So if I use those and build up the value, so on here we've got all the greys here, so I can build the values up. And then we've got other pencils such as dark sepia, and we've got the browns. But then you can also add a glaze over the top, or even put in the colours. You will find with a lot of like black dogs, when you're doing them in pencil, you will have violets in there, bluey violets, blues, and also you could have some red tones or some neutral yellowy orange tones, and some browns. And that's whether it's warm or cool. And as you progress with your coloured pencil, at first you're going to struggle to probably see the colours. But the more you do it and practice this and actually try and understand about colours and how they work, then you will actually start to see colours. I mean, I've got students, I've had one here today, and he said, you know, he now, when he looks at something, he observes it a lot more and a lot deeper, and he can actually see all the different colours that's in there. Because one of the things you've got to learn to do when you're doing pencil drawings, like I say, is built up of layers, and we can do lots and lots and lots and lots of layers. So because we could work from light to dark, that is the general principle of coloured pencil. You need some very sort of light neutral shades as your base layers. So, I mean, I personally like to use, if I can, the luminance pencils, the more waxy pencils for the base layers. And then I use the polychromos, which are a lot harder to pencil, but if you get a nice point on them, you can get quite a lot of detail. So the detail part comes on at the end. But, you know, I need to be able to see the colour. So when I look at a picture, I now can strip back the colours. So if I'm looking at a black Labrador, say, I can strip the colours back and I can move it around and see what the underlying tones are, so if they're warm or if they're cool. And so I can put base layers in of warm or cool greys, say, and then you can put the blues and the blacks and the warm colours or whatever on top, and you layer it up, and it all adds to creating depth. And that is what you're looking for in your pencil work. It's depth, texture and tone. They're the most important things, I think, that you need to show in your pencil work. So learning about colour, you know, not that it's just a red pencil or a green pencil. You need to learn and understand complementary colours, cool colours, warm colours. There's quite a lot. I mean, you could write a full book on just colour if you wanted. But you're not expected to learn it all straight away. It's something that you build up, and it becomes built up by experience. Okay? So I am just explaining some of the basics of what I use. But so you can use them, or also, like I said, there's those that you can use, or you can use a combination of those to find the colours in the photographs that you're wanting to work. Another thing that you could use is, I've got it here on my phone, on my Apple phone. I've got an app, and it's called the Colour Pencil Picker. Okay, so that's the title of the app. It does cost, but it's not expensive. I think it's something like $7.99. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's something like $7.99. Once you paid it, it's yours. Now, on this app, we have got all these different pencil brands here, which, like I said, are all quite popular. So you've got the Caran d'Ache Supercolour, the Luminance. Now, this hasn't been updated. When I got it, there was only 76 Luminance colours. There's now 100. So there's probably a new one out there now. But you've also got sets of 40. So if you've only got 40 in your set, then use that, which will show you also what you do then is you click on there and it says choose from album. So I can go to my photo album, pick a photo. I've picked the Caran d'Ache Luminance set of 40, and then I can expand the picture. And then when I move this dot around, here it gives me the information. So it tells me the pencil. So it's the Caran d'Ache Luminance brand. So we know that's Caran d'Ache White 001, and also Naples Ochre. Now it's got numbers on them. So that's got, I don't know if you can see it. It's got a 2 and it's got a 1. So in other words, you do 2 layers of the white and 1 layer of the Naples Ochre on the top. And what should happen is you'll get this target colour which matches that colour. Now you don't have to be that extreme. You could just put a white on there if you wanted. And then as you move it around, you'll see these colours change. So there we've got a Burnt Sienna 10% and Naples Ochre. So we've got 2 layers of the Burnt Sienna and 1 layer of the Naples Ochre. But if you want, you could, I mean, if you look at that there, the actual target, if you've got the Burnt Sienna 10%, just try that very lightly. So your base layers will be extremely light. So I look around there and look at all the lightest colours, and that's where I pick my base layers out from. So I go to all the light colours on the subject, and then I pick them out in, so I write them down and I pick them out of the luminance. But I also double check with the charts that I've got if I've got the right colours. So then what I do is I go back to the brands, and then if I scroll down, we've got the Polychromos 120 set. So that's a full set. So again, I pick from the album. So I'm just going to pick the actual reference photograph there. You can pull in and out of it there. So now I'm going to look at the darker colours. So I'm looking at the sort of darkest colours, because they're what I'm going to be using for the detail. So on there, it does say black. Now, I never use black. I tend to use, I use the greys and work up layering and layering. So from the base layer to that, I'm going to be layering up with different greys. Now, if you look, it's got some warm tones, purpley tones up at the top of his head. And if you look there, now it gives me 3 pencils. Now, I never use 3 pencils to create one colour. I tend to stick to the nearest. I strip these back and use the nearest colour to that. So it might not be any of these. I'll have a look on my sort of, if I have a look on this, on, you know, the chart that I've got like this, see if I can find which is nearest to it. And that's the colour that I can pick out. So, or the other one is you can just pick out by sight if you're good enough, you think, to pick some of the pencils up. So if you've got like a group of your yellows and you're looking for a yellow, or a group of reds, say, or oranges there, you could pick some of the oranges and orangey reds up and just look at them and put them on a scrap piece of paper like this, and then just pull them across and see which one sort of is the nearest one. So I mean, for this one it says 2 times the cadmium light and then 1 deep red. Now looking at that, I would probably just use the light cadmium, because I'll be building up with layers, so the more layers you put on, the darker it gets as well. So yeah, I don't particularly, I just use this as a guide, and then what I will do is I'll get a scrap piece of paper like this, and then I'll get what I think the colour is and just do that and put a sample on and see if that matches that colour. And then obviously I can put a little bit more pressure on and see how it's gonna, what it's gonna build up to by doing the layers. Okay, so coloured pencil work is all about layers. Now, when I'm doing a commission, I can go as far as 20 layers to try and get, you know, the texture, the depth and the tone of what I need. And especially for dark colours, you do have to keep layering up and layering up. Okay, so that's a bit about picking colours. So, as I say, you've got different means. You've got this, which is the colour picker. If anybody wants a bit more information on that, then just email me. My email is deliasart2912@gmail.com. Any questions, you could just ask me them. That's fine. Now then, I was going to show you a little bit about the watercolour pencils. So if I want to use a watercolour pencil for a layer, so this is an olive brown. So this one's olive brown. It gives you the number again of the pencil there. It's 039. Okay, if you can see it there, it's 039. It tells you what the name of it is there. It's an olive brown, and that tip there is the colour. But if you look here, if you look at the pencil tip and that, it doesn't look quite the same. So this is why I always say, I always have a scrap bit of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm just doing some strokes very close together, like that. Okay. So I've done quite a few layers, and then what you can do is you can use a cotton wool bud, or you can use a brush. You can use a brush, you can use a cotton wool bud. whichever you want really. And then what you need to do is put in some water, and then if you just apply it gently, move the cotton wool around a bit and then pull it out. And if you need to build up the colour, just let it dry a little bit and then go back over the top like that, and then again wet it and pull it down a bit more, and then you can see how it starts to blend out, and it does look a lot like and you can blend those together, and it does look, it gives you a watercolour sort of effect. And then once that's dried, you can use the pencils on top. So you can use a brush as well, as I say, or you can use cotton wool bud. It depends on the size of the area, to be honest. I tend to use a cotton wool bud, but if I've got smaller areas or where I need to get into some really sharp pointed areas, then I use a brush. And also I use a bigger brush if I've got a bigger area. And then what I can do is I can either work on top of that, like that, with a watercolour pencil and just build it up. So like that is building the colour up. Okay, and then pull off the pressure as you're coming into the lighter areas. Or what you can do is you can actually then use a polychromos or a luminance or whatever on top. But you've got to make sure it's completely dry. So that's one way of, you could use a base layer. So you could, I do use these a lot as base layers, to be quite honest. And then I use them occasionally for something else. But the other one that I use a lot is this white. I use the watercolour white because when you're doing a lot of coloured pencil work, you do eyes and things, then you've got highlights. And sometimes your colours get a little bit, you know, you lose some of the whites. So you can sharpen these, and you can actually use the two ones that I use. Either is I use either the simply because they're more opaque, and so you can actually get some of these, you know, you can actually get it sort of on top of some of the colours. But also you can use these for blending when you're doing colour pencil work. If you're doing dry colour pencil work, there's different ways of blending them. You can blend by solvent, or you blend by pencil blend, or you can actually get what we call a blending pencil, which is like it's just a blank lead, it's got no colour on it, and you can use that, but I find that kills the paper a lot. So I've messed about. Now polychromos white isn't really a very good white. In fact, I never really use it. But I have found that the two best whites for blending and for opaqueness, because if you're wanting to put a bit of white on top of another colour that you've already put on, like that. So you can see that you can put a little bit of a light colour on top of a darker colour, but it's got to be a very opaque pencil to do it. Okay. So I found that that's the watercolour one, and then we've got this luminance one, and that works just as well. So if I'm blending colours as dry pencil, so if I've got like, so if I want to sort of blend these colours, so I've got that colour and say this colour. So you can see when you're doing colour pencil, when you first put the layers down, I mean, that's a bit heavier than I would normally do it. This is why we build up in layers, because you've got your paper grain showing through. Because like, say you've got it's sort of, your grain is like that on the paper surface. So when you're putting a coloured pencil across, it's hitting these top bits here. It's not going down into the groove. So by layering, eventually you do get it to go down. But what you can do in between layers, you can just get a white pencil. And using very light pressure, the same pressure as what you've used for your pencils. If you use your white like that, it starts to blend the colours. But now you'll notice that it also lightens the colours. So it's blending them a bit, but it's lightening them. So what you have to do is you get your colours again, And then you do another layer. Now when you do this next layer, you will notice that it's starting to look a lot smoother. Okay, still got some of the paper whites coming through. So again, you get your, I use my luminance really usually, and then again you can just, so you could do 2 or 3 layers before you do each blend. Then blend them, and then each time you blend them, you see they're getting smoother and smoother. And what's happening is the paper is starting to, so I'm only doing light pressure. Okay. So a couple of layers there. And then another couple of layers here. So I'm putting the colour back in. And then I'm just going to go back over again with the white, and this will smooth it out even more. Okay, so now you can see they are really starting to look nice and smooth, and you're losing a lot of the pencil, the paper texture. And then obviously towards the end you can start then to put a little bit more pressure on. And then what you do is you do a burnishing, which is when you put hard pressure on. Now when you do burnish, you won't be able to put many more layers on top. That's because what you're doing is killing the tooth of the paper. Okay, so what you're doing in effect is flattening that down. But as I say, if you only use, you need to do quite a lot of layers on your colour pencil work, because if you don't, then your picture is going to look flat. Same as if you use black for a black dog. If you just use black, it's going to look flat. It's not going to look like it's got any definition or depth into it. So these are things that you need to learn about. So we've gone through the colour. I mean, I'm just skipping some bits now, and then what I shall do is I'll do you an half an hour video, excuse me. I'll do you an half an hour video of one technique, and I'll be doing quite a few of those. Now I'll be doing coloured pencil, but I'll also be doing watercolour, because I'm initially I started out as a watercolour artist, and I still do watercolour. But I like the variety and the choice. So when I pick a subject, I mean, if I'm going to do a landscape, then it will be in watercolour paint. I'm not keen on doing landscapes in pencil because it takes so long, and not only that, it's not really what I've been taught to do, or what I've taught myself to do. I like to do my animals in pencil, because again I get more depth, I get more detail than what I would with watercolour. But saying that, I do a lot of my animals as well in watercolour. I have just completed one of the projects on my Patreon site, and it's a picture of a puffin, but it's done in watercolour paints, but it's quite detailed. So these are the 3 videos on YouTube which I'm going to be posting, so you're quite welcome for that. I like to share as much of the subject as I can. I don't believe in hiding anything. I don't edit the videos as in edit and take bits out. What you see is what you get. That's me. If you've got any questions, as I say, use my email, which is deliasart, which is DELIASART2912@gmail.com. Or you can just message me on the bottom of the comment on the bottom of the YouTube video. And then if you want to, you're quite welcome to join us on Patreon. Now, Patreon is a site where artists can go, and people who want to learn about certain subjects, or I mean, it's not just for art. There's computer studies on there. There's all sorts. And I have a page on there where I do all my tutorials. So I do full tutorials. There's a collection. They have collections. So one of the collections is watercolour. So all the watercolour pieces are on there. There's another collection for colour pencil. So all my colour pencil work's on there. And then I've also got one for mandalas, because occasionally if you lose your mojo, like a lot of artists do, or you just fancy doing something a little bit different and a little bit just stress-free, basically, or if you've had a stressful day at work and you just want to chill, mandalas are a good way of relaxing. So I do some mandalas. I do some by hand, but then I also do a digital section. And the digital art that I do is on Procreate. So I do things like mandalas and Zentangles and doodles and things like that on the digital side. And I'll show you how to use a digital program that I use, which is Procreate. And they're all on my sort of Patreon site. So if you go onto Patreon, it opens up and it says find a creator. Now there's hundreds of artists on there. And what you need to do is just put the name in. So if you just put Delia Prudence in, it'll fetch me up. You can join free and get the free videos, sort of like what I do on YouTube. I'll also post on there. And also I post on the free bit, I will post you posts that I'm going to be doing, or tutorials that I'm going to be doing in the future, so you can see what is coming. But also I may have a couple of different reference pictures and say, right, I want you to vote which one you think would look best, which pose would look best. And it's out there for you to sort of pick them. But then you can also join what we call a tier, where on there you will get access to every single video or online tutorial. So all the watercolour, all the coloured pencils, all the mandalas, all the Zentangles, digital work, you get access to everything. And apart from step-by-step videos, so some projects may take 4 or 5 videos. You can watch them at your own pace, you can stop, you can rewind them. And as I say, watch them at your own pace in your own home. But you will also get a list of documents that you can print out or you can download onto your laptop or your tablet. And they are like a line drawing, but you're free to draw your own drawing. I will also be talking in some of the YouTube videos. I will be showing you different ways of getting your image onto the paper that you're going to be working with. There's several different ways. You'll get the line drawing if you want it. You get a full list of materials for each project, and also you will get a reference photograph. Now the references I use are usually from Pixabay Free Imaging, Unsplash, which again are free, they're license free, and there's Flickr, which is Flick with an R on the end. Now I use what we call unlicensed, or they're not copyrighted, so you can use them, and you can use them as inspiration, or you can try and use them for the work that you're doing to pick your colours, all of that. I tend to, if I'm getting them, you'll always have a reference on there of the actual photographer, so I always try and mention the photographer's name as well. And also I've started recently using a lot of my own images that I take with my own camera. Now you're free to use them. I'm not gonna say you can't use them. You can sell them, you can make them into cards, you can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna put a copyright on them, so you're free to use whatever images I put down. You can use. I make sure they're license free, or if they're my personal ones, I'm giving you permission to use them. So you get all of that, so you can download that, and then you just do the step by step. And as I say, I don't edit them as such. I put a title on at the beginning, and I make sure everything runs through okay. But I don't edit them that much, and what you see is what you get. Now, I may talk in them a bit too much sometimes, and I have to pull myself in, but I'm trying to make sure that I explain every bit of detail that I'm doing. Now, I don't want you to sort of copy exactly what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is give you the different techniques. So, for instance, there could be, for doing eyes, there could be 2 or 3 different techniques, and I will do a video on each technique, and then it's up to you which you find, or you may even look at it and think, oh, I wonder if I can do this or that with it. And I love to see your pictures because I believe in trying to teach you the different techniques so that you can create your own style of art, and that's the best way to do that. So when I've done workshops and I've had classes of say 7-8 people or even more, then they've done the same painting, so they've used the same image, but everybody's picture is totally different. And that's because they know all the different techniques that's needed to do that picture, but done in different ways, and it's whatever suits them. And they do develop their own style, and that is what I'm aiming for. So on my Patreon site, that is what I do. And as I say, you get access to all of the catalogue of tutorials, and they're all put in collections, so they're easy enough to find. So if you like doing things like the British wildlife, quite detailed in pencil, that's, there's quite a few on there. The watercolour section, there's going to be techniques, mixing, all about colours, same as on the colour pencil, but then there's going to be full projects. And there's going to be landscapes, and there's going to be animals, and there's going to be birds. So there's going to be a mixture on there. And then the mandalas, as I say, or the Zentangles, they're a bit more of a fun, relaxing hobby for you to do. So if you've had a stressful day or something and you just want to unwind, they're ideal to do. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again in the near future. Bye.